All right, let's have a look at doing some more difficult quadratic algebra problems. This is probably suited towards the end of the upper end of Year 9 students, but also definitely Year 10 type subject as well. So we've got a couple of example questions here, and let's have a look at how we're going to attack them. So typically when we see a question like this, what we're looking for is to see if we can use any of our identities or our formulas to try and help us to simplify our approach to answer this question. Now, see, the issue is when we have a look at this one, we're probably looking for a 2AB there, because then we can potentially use a perfect squares or a different squares rule to help us out, but we actually don't here. So therefore, we need to just use our understanding of how to factorize quadratic algebra to help us answer this question. Now, it works the same way as if you would have numbers, but obviously here again we've got variables. So because of that, our first step here is actually to identify what the variable is. Because usually when we've got the numbers there, obviously everybody can see what the variable is, but it's much more difficult now. Okay, so we notice that we have a squared at the start, and the a is also present in that second term there. So for that reason, we can suggest that a is going to be our variable, right? So now that we understand that a is going to be our variable, then we can find out obviously the coefficients that go with that. So here we have b, and here we have 182b squared. So therefore, we need to come up with two numbers that sum to b and multiply to 182b squared. Right, so this is going to be difficult. We have to come up with the factors of 182. That's probably going to help us first. All right. So we know that 13 times 14 is equal to 182. All right. So that works out well. And then we can also suggest that if we go 14 minus 13, we get 1, which would be the coefficient of b that we've got here. So therefore, we're going to use 13 and 14 within our answers. Now remember that a was our variable. So when we're simplifying, we're actually going to write a, when we're factorising, we're going to write a first, because this is what's going to create our a squared and also the a in this term. Okay, but we also need to incorporate the b and understand that when we multiply these terms together, we get 182b squared. So simply with the numbers 13 and 14, which we established are going to help us before, we simply just need to write a b. Because 13b times 14b will be 182b squared, and 14b minus 13b is equal to b, which is what we want. Okay. So therefore, the answer to this equation is going to be a plus 14b minus a times a minus 13b. All right. That's a tough one. So if you want, you can go back and have a look over that. Next one we're going to look at is actually probably easier, because straight up by looking at this, we realise that we've got a 2 in our second term here. Now, if we remember back to our formulas, a plus b squared is equal to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, so that is in the format of what we've got up here. We just need to again identify our variable. Now we've had a bit of practice with that, it's a lot easier to recognise. So we can establish that b is going to be our variable, and we'll come back to that and how we're going to use that later. Okay, but we know it's going to be in this form, so essentially we just need to recognise what our a and our b in terms of this format are going to be. So simply, we can recognise that a is going to be b squared, a is going to be b, because when we square, b was in this position and we then square it, we're going to get b squared, which is what we want. And b is going to end up resulting in these two terms. Okay, so we know that b squared is equal to a squared c squared. Therefore, b going to equal the square root of a squared b squared, c squared I should say, which is just ac. So therefore the answer to this equation is simply b minus ac squared, because b squared is going to get this value, ac squared is going to get this value, and then essentially what we do, the middle term we multiply by 2, so that's where we get a 2 here, and then ac times b is just going to be abc over here. And there you go. That's our solutions for the questions for today. Hope that helped. Have a good one.